Before we begin today's podcast, a brief content warning. The two episodes we are going to be looking at today are the Season 6 episodes Terms of Endearment and The Rain King. Terms of Endearment contains a lot of content that listeners may find triggering. This includes child death, abortion, miscarriage, and the abduction of children. Rain King contains animal abuse, in particular the death of a cow. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And I don't have even tangential news this week, I think.
No, certainly nothing X-Files related.
Or even just X-Files people showing up in other places.
No, nothing important happened today.
Eventually this will become relevant.
Yeah, I'll keep saying it till it's relevant.
And you'll keep saying it after it's relevant as well, I imagine.
True.
Well, I suppose we should get on to Season 6. And, hey, it's kind of a bright spark after the kind of trudge so far.
Yeah, other than, of course, Bryan Cranston's fantastic turn in Drive, which I'm going to keep singing to the heavens because he's been our best guest star so far, everything else about this season's been a little disappointing so far.
Yeah, I remember the season being a lot better than it is, and maybe it'll improve shortly. Or
we're not even quite halfway through it, so we've still got a bit for it to kind of turn around.
Indeed. But for now, we'll look at some endearment, some terms of... There's no way to do this, is there?
That's not a good segue.
No. Terms of Endearment. Directed by Rob Bowman, written by David Amann, his first for the series, and first broadcast on the 3rd of Jan 1999. Guest stars. Well, there's a significant one, isn't there?
One does stand out.
He does. Bruce Campbell as Wayne Winesider. Who's one of these people where you think, yes, he's been in lots of stuff, and it turns out, yeah, it's been lots of stuff we've seen. He's actually not... He's had a good career, but it's kind of the whole... Very niche, ultimately, isn't he?
Oh, I've read his biography, and he very much is a B-movie actor.
Yeah. So, of course, he was in The Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, Evil Dead Again, and Evil Dead Rise, which I did not know he was in.
Isn't it voice only?
It's voice only, but
Yeah.
I didn't know he was in there at all.
Yeah, it's towards the end.
Yeah. He was also in Darkman. He was meant to be Darkman, of course, but then the studio said no.
Mm-hmm.
But he is still in there. Congo, which I've forgotten about.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Fargo? You haven't seen Fargo by...
No, I haven't seen Fargo.
Apparently this comes up a few times, because basically, apparently he's credited a few times as a sitcom actor on TV shows inside Coen Brothers films.
Oh, okay.
So as often as Bruce Campbell will show up on a TV screen somewhere in a Coen Brothers film.
Oh, how neat.
He was in Escape from LA, very sadly.
Yeah.
He was in Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3, as different people each time somehow.
Yeah. I think he also got into the new Doctor Strange movie.
He did, that was later. But
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. Bubba Hotep, not as funny as I wanted it to be. Intolerable Cruelty, another Coen Brothers. Cars 2, I did not realise at all.
Okay.
Oz the Great and the Powerful. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
American Gothic, I'd forgotten about.
Yes, he was.
Because him and Ted Raimi make into that one.
He's the one who's eaten by beetles, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
There you go.
Xena Warrior Princess, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Ash vs. the Evil Dead, strangely enough, has Bruce Campbell in it, which we still need to watch.
Who would expect?
The other guest star of note is Michael Milhone, who played Deputy Archie Stevens, who was in The Rocketeer.
Okay.
Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, Sneakers, Multiplicity, Phenomenon, Lost World, Jurassic Park, and Seinfeld.
Ah. Would you like to give us a synopsis for this one, then?
I will. From Wikipedia, in Holland, Virginia, Wayne Winesider and his pregnant wife Laura learned via an ultrasound scan that their unborn child has bizarre physical abnormalities, such as horn-like protrusions on its head. Wayne appears to be especially distraught after hearing the news. That night, Laura has a terrifying dream in which a demon-like figure snatches the baby from her womb, and when she awakens, the couple discover Laura has seemingly miscarried. Laura's brother reports the story to the X-Files section at the FBI. Spender discards the report, but Mulder fishes the shredded document out of Spender's trash, reassembles it, and travels to Virginia. After Mulder interviews the Winesiders, the police who suspect an illegal abortion, according to Scully, search property. Meanwhile, Wayne confesses to Laura that he destroyed the evidence, claiming she aborted the child while in a trance-like state. He convinces Laura that his story is true, and when the police find remains of the baby in the garden furnace, Laura turns herself in. When Wayne subsequently visits Laura in jail, she becomes suspicious of him and is horrified to see a bite wound she delivered to the demon that attacked her on Wayne's neck. To evade detection, Wayne sucks out Laura's soul, but the EMT is able to save her life, much to his surprise, though she remains comatose. Mulder soon discovers that Wayne has another wife, Betsy Monroe, who is also pregnant. A background check of Wayne finds that he is a Czech immigrant who originally went by the name of Ivan Velez and has been widowed several times. Mulder suspects that Wayne is a demon who is trying to have a normal baby and terminates pregnancies when the fetus exhibits demonic traits. After Betsy tells Wayne that her sonogram uncovers some irregularities in the baby's bone structure, Wayne proceeds with his abortion plan. Betsy then has a dream similar to Laura, but recognises the dream demon as her husband and confronts him. Mulder and Scully are driving to Betsy's home. They encounter her distraught and bloody, driving Wayne's car, apparently having just lost her baby. The agents seek out Wayne and catch him digging in Betsy's backyard. Confronted, Wayne claims that he is digging up evidence before he is shot by a deputy. He is taken to the hospital and placed next to Laura. When he sees her, he opens his mouth and returns her soul to her body, allowing her to recover while he dies. Mulder and Scully discover the skeletal remains of several human babies in Betsy's backyard, none with deformities, leading Mulder to deduce that Betsy is also a demon who is unable to have demonic offspring unless impregnated by another demon. Unlike Wayne, she has been terminated pregnancies that resulted in non-demonic babies, the very kind Wayne has been so desperate to have. As a demon, Betsy recognised Wayne as a male of her kind, which enabled her to stop him from extracting her baby and then frame him for the deaths of the buried babies in her yard. In the final scene, Betsy is seen driving away in Wayne's convertible with a car seat in which a baby's mottled claw hand protrudes. She smiles at the child, momentarily revealing her demonic eyes.
Thank you.
It's kind of hilarious. There was that complaint about how the Ghost Stole Christmas or Dreamland of where's the X-Files darkness gone, and it's wham! Here it is, all the contents warnings, one after another. Oh my god. It's also a really fun episode.
It's like I said last week, and it's kind of not quite as dark, I don't think, as Home. But after Home, this has been the most content warnings I've felt I had to put on one of our podcasts.
Yeah, and in abstract, it sounds absolutely horrendous, and it doesn't sound watchable.
Mm.
And yet, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen this episode, go and watch it because Bruce Campbell's a delight. The whole thing is lighter in tone than you'd think, but it's not making fun of the subject matter.
No,
it's a very odd
I
balancing
wouldn't say
act.
it's a comedy episode, and indeed some people criticise this episode as kind of not fully achieving its kind of potential either way, because it's not scary and it's not a comedy episode either.
Well, I don't think it's meant to be. I think it wound up as it intended to. I think this is the line it's trying to straddle.
It does, interestingly, for as despicable as Wayne is, he's oddly sympathetic.
Yes, I mean, it's quite a skill to root for the demon who forcibly aborted his wife's pregnancy, then framed her for the death of the child.
Then stole her soul.
And is also trying to just have children with other women on the grounds that Laura hasn't worked out, but Betsy's already pregnant, so she was an insurance policy for him.
Yep.
So it's not even the whole he's moved on because he's used up one person. This was always hedging his bets.
Interestingly, the genesis of this episode is quite curious because the pitch for the episode was a reverse Rosemary's Baby. So if you haven't seen Rosemary's Baby, it's a woman who's kind of tricked and forcibly impregnated by a cult, though she doesn't realise that she's playing into it until quite late on in the film, who eventually drug her and deliver the devil's child.
Yes.
In the case of this one, you've got the reverse of you're showing it from the devil's perspective as he's trying to deliver these babies. So the original pitch was just going to be he keeps unsuccessfully delivering babies, killing off the woman and moving on to the next. But Chris Carter kind of raised the criticism of this is a bit by the numbers of him just going to woman to woman to woman, murdering them. So Chris Carter put the suggestion of, alright, so we show this once and then what if the second woman herself is a demon? And they reworked the episode from there.
And it's a great twist because you can't see it coming.
No, there's nothing to kind of suggest it at all.
But it's such a sort of a thrilling moment when she sort of says, maybe you didn't hear me, Wayne, grabs him by the throat, which point the illusion shatters.
Mm.
And the look of dumb bemusement on Bruce Campbell's face is great.
Yeah, but what you doing, Wayne?
This is not how this works. But yeah, it's as you say, it's not a comedy episode, but it's weirdly light-hearted.
Yeah, it's particularly in the bits where Mulder has read the script and is absolutely just pestering Wayne at all times, stalking him, essentially.
Yeah.
It's quite comedic.
And I will say, I think that's one of the only criticisms I really have of the episode is it's not so much Mulder reading the script as this is exactly the kind of twisted logic Mulder would have come up with in the past. We've seen him do this.
Yeah.
And as you did actually know while we were watching the episode of, so you can believe in demons, Mulder, but God is just beyond the pale.
I was thinking this through as well, and because this isn't our first X-Files demon either, particularly in the religious episodes, we've had Dehander Devalettes, we've had Revelations, and we've had All Souls now.
Yeah.
But the more religious-orientated ones like Revelations and All Souls, Mulder has been so skeptical of. But this demon's fine.
This is fine. But I think my huge criticism of it is when Mulder does actually conclude early what Wayne's plan is. Because I remember it as it not being that clear cut, and you being able to put it together from the implication of what's buried in Betsy's backyard.
Yeah.
I thought that was enough to make it clear how this was working and what both of them were trying to do and how they'd been stymied by it.
Yeah, true.
So that's my it just felt it didn't trust the audience quite enough, and I thought it could have, that we could have grasped that.
Yeah, true. Interestingly, I learnt a lot from my research of this episode into how hard it is to procure a skeleton.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Well, you do see when they're excavating Laura's yard, the kind of discarded skeletal fetuses. Originally, they thought it would be easy from a research institution to just get a skeletal fetus. Those things cost thousands of pounds, apparently.
Oh, okay.
So in the end, they bought a bunch of fake adult skeletons, shaved down the arms and legs, and just made a plasticast kind of baby's head, so it looked a bit more convincing to stick on top of it. And that's our baby skeleton prop.
Okay.
But yeah, my other weird trivia about the effects in this is they are almost all practical, which you wouldn't think looking at the episode.
No, I can see it. I imagine Horizon at the end is going to be one of the few CGI ones.
Yeah, the one in particular is the shots you always get when Wayne is stealing the babies of the demon at the foot of the bed. So that is a kind of fireproof bed with big flame kind of gas heaters positioned a good distance away from it, and then some neat camera trickery so it looks like the fire is around the bed.
Yeah, I know there's it came up on the audio commentary for Desperado, bizarrely.
Okay.
There's a way of focusing cameras so things can seem right on top of people.
Apparently it's with a long lens.
Yeah.
You can make it look like two things are a lot closer together than they actually are.
Yeah, there's a shot in Desperado where it looks like a kid's about to be hit by a truck.
Okay.
And the commentary, Robert Rodriguez is saying, that's like 30 foot away at the time.
Yeah.
But the way we've shot it makes it look like it's about to hit him.
I see.
So yeah, it's a good trick as well. I do kind of like how over the top the demon stuff is, because it's like he's just a natural
It's a stereotype,
demon.
horns and tails sort of job.
Yeah. Tail is less obvious, I think. I know he does have a tail, but I don't think it's as obvious in the shots.
He's most obviously got the horns and those kind of like bony plates along his shoulders.
Yeah, and just being, dark and sort of menacing.
With the glowing eyes, yeah.
But, I mean, the thing we touched on before as well is it's quite impressive to make you feel for Wayne so much. Because you very quickly get the sense, though, it's not malicious, and it's like how upset he was at the start of the episode with the sonogram. And the fact that is proven to be dedicated to Laura despite everything, which also feels that's a surprise.
When he ultimately sacrifices himself to save her.
Yeah, and so I would not have expected that to happen.
No. It's true, it does come a bit out of left field as well when previously he's shown that he will throw Laura under a bus to protect himself.
Yeah, but I'm guessing, the cynical way you could look at that is Betsy's just betrayed him, and the depths of what she did has sort of just knocked his whole worldview.
But now he understands.
He understands the incredible chance of actually running across the opposite way round, who wants the inverse of what he has. She's got exactly what he wants, and he's got exactly what she wants.
And I guess is arguably more evil as well. I mean, I don't think you can argue that anyone in this comes out well. But at the same time, Wayne's killing demons, and this woman is killing healthy human babies.
Yes. And I think that's why it's sort of kind of more left up to implication ultimately. But, the other thing about it, though, is that we also have a weird quandary about how evil are demons, because Wayne seems to be, other than the whole abortion thing, a very standout guy.
He's legitimately kind of doing his job. He's like a kind of an adjuster for a medical insurance firm.
Yeah.
And from what you see when Mulder's talking of him, he does do his job correctly as well.
Yeah, and I think presumably the implication is, and the episode doesn't, I don't think it spells it out very well, is that his blood test thing is presumably how he's selecting his possible future brides.
It certainly infers that he's using it to find them, whether or not it's the blood test or if he's just using this to kind of get closer to women.
Yeah, but I imagine it'll be he's using the blood to screen them for things, so he's trying to check for other possibilities. There's maybe something demon he can do to see if they've got something he doesn't want in there.
Some kind of demon eugenics.
Yeah. One thing about this episode, and it's interesting that we've basically got 2 more episodes of this left, and there's a lot less than I thought it was going to be, is Spender in charge of the X-Files amounts to nothing.
Go on.
So this is one of these things where you sort of present it as this is a series running plot. Spender and Fowley are in charge of the X-Files. Fowley we haven't seen since the beginning. She's just evaporated into thin air somewhere.
Yeah, it's kind of odd that there's been inferences of Fowley, but she's just not been there since the first episode of the season.
No, and we've only seen Spender like 3 times this season, because it's at the beginning, Triangle, and this episode.
Yeah, he's not in Dreamland at all.
No. What I'm getting at here is that, in memory, this season was like a slog of Mulder's under Kirsch, Mulder's chafing against Kirsch. Spender is running the X-Files into the ground because he doesn't really want this job. He's just going to do things his way, which is like Scully plus plus. And at this point, it turns out that we've seen almost nothing of how Spender operates in the X-Files, other than shredding this report immediately. Because it is a tabloid headline, what he's been presented with. So while Mulder gives the deputy the time of day, Spender is shreds it immediately, because I think most people would say, yeah, this is not a case.
Interestingly, Chris Owens has an anecdote about how people in the street viewed him differently after the airing of Terms of Endearment.
After this one?
Just because, and it was also raised by critics at the time, that Spender is an outright villain in this episode. You see him kind of reassuring this guy he's going to help, and the second the guy's out the door, shredding the file.
Did they not watch the beginning? Or Triangle, which were the kind of... Triangle, admittedly, it could be Mulder's mind, but the beginning certainly implies that he is dancing to Cancer Man's tune now.
I think it's more the disrespect to the X-Files themselves, though. I mean, this is Mulder's legacy and everything. One angry fan in the street reportedly accosted Chris Owens and just called him a paper shredder because of this.
I love how people can't distinguish actors and roles.
Yeah. It's nice that people get so passionate, though. I mean, that's why we have fan fiction and things like that.
It's true, but at the same time, what did you expect Spender to do, really?
Well, but there are different things. There's putting it in a file and never intending to do something with it versus shredding it. Shredding it is more malicious and deliberate.
True. I mean, I would also say that we've given Mulder a level of obsession that we haven't seen him do before.
When he's taped the shredded documents together.
That together.
Yeah.
And also how flimsy his excuses are for when he's caught out, like when Wayne actually reports him back to the FBI.
Mm.
And yeah, Mulder, this was never going to work for long. And also, I did find as well, is a good illustration of Mulder's selfishness, which I don't think we've had for a while, is he calls up Scully to get her to look into the case. He makes some offhand comment about being stuck with this detail, and she kind of just blasts him. It's like, you're not stuck with anything. I'm the one here doing this. You're off gallivanting in Virginia.
Yeah. I must admit, I did like some of Mulder's asides. I thought David Duchovny did pretty well in this episode, to be fair. My favourite one is right at the start, where the detective wants to call up Spender and thank him, and Mulder talks him out of it.
Yeah, that's all good. I mean, again, it's kind of like they're all behaving like it is a comedy episode, but the tone isn't all the way into comedy.
It's much like Home, where it's such a dark subject matter that it doesn't feel like it should be as funny as it ultimately is.
No, but unlike Home, though, it's not as dreary. As fun as Home was ultimately, it's not dreary like Home was. There's no kind of sense of dread in the same way.
No, that's
true. This is a lighter episode, despite the heavy subject matter.
True. I can't contest that. My biggest criticism, and I think some other people did pick up on this, there was a criticism of, that I certainly read somewhere, that Mulder and Scully's role in this episode is shallow. And I don't think that's entirely accurate, because Mulder's isn't, but Scully.
Yeah.
Very much so, particularly on the basis of Scully has lost a child herself. And we've previously seen Scully get very invested in plots that involve children being killed. But Scully just doesn't seem to register in this one at all.
That's a very good point. And Hey, you know what this means? A chance to say again.
Go on.
Well, it's the whole that show Bible we know exists, but they don't use it. But we also know this is someone's first script.
He's a script editor for the X-Files, though.
So he has no excuse for not knowing this, really.
No. There's another criticism I have similarly, and it's something that everybody always points out about this episode. There's a throwaway line that reportedly is an ad-lib from David Duchovny, where he tells something to Scully and finishes the sentence by saying, "But I'm no psychologist." But technically he is. That's what his degree is in.
Yeah, more than you really are.
A lot of people have picked up on that as being a weakness in the episode of, well, what are you doing if you can kind of have a slip-up like this?
That's the kind of slip-up, though, that someone should have caught. Like, the script editor should have caught it, Chris Carter should have caught it, any of the rest of the producers should have caught it and said, no, hang on, that doesn't make sense.
Kind of interesting as well, because in his biography, Bruce Campbell mentioned the fact that he didn't feel there was a lot of room for improvisation in the X-Files because it's such a well-oiled machine. But we know that David Duchovny does improvise all the time because things like his wedding ring in the flashback episodes, he's got in trouble for it in the past.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just he wasn't doing a lot whenever he was sharing a scene with Bruce Campbell, because they have quite a number of scenes together, but not a huge number.
Mm.
So I wonder if he never saw this happen or something.
Yeah, it could be.
But I'm sure they'd let you cameo Bruce Campbell. I mean, you have another bit of trivia about Bruce Campbell, which would have been a fascinating alternate universe had it happened.
Yes. We haven't encountered the character yet, and we don't try to look ahead so much. But in a few seasons' time, there is a major character introduced called Agent John Doggett, who is played by Robert Patrick. But Bruce Campbell was one of the original ones in the running to be cast as Doggett, but unfortunately he wasn't allowed to audition because he was contractually obligated to another series that didn't allow him to take outside work at the time.
Which is kind of tragic. I mean, I really do wonder what fandom's reaction would have been to Bruce Campbell coming in like that instead of
Robert Patrick. Yeah. I like Robert Patrick as John Doggett a lot. He's one of these Marmite characters that some fans love and some fans hate. But I can also imagine Bruce Campbell doing really well in that role, to be honest.
Yeah, I can see it, and I kind of wish we could have seen this one, really, because that'd have been a hoot.
Unfortunately, it's one for the parallel universe.
It is, and at least one joke from that era will not play if it was Bruce Campbell.
True.
I imagine there'll be a different joke entirely put in there instead.
I know exactly the one you mean.
You do.
Yep.
It's hard to ignore that one. So, in a sort of heavy mode, the one thing I thought was kind of, I don't know if dodgy, but kind of the whole, you lose a bit of respect for Mulder and Scully over it. But I can understand why their hands are tied, but it's that point of when, as far as she can tell, Laura did self-abort.
Yes.
And the fact that this is illegal in Virginia at a certain point in time.
Yeah.
And I know this is actually legal in other countries, and we know America's a mess with this at the moment.
Yeah.
And there are cut-offs where basically this is deemed illegal for whatever reason. At the same time, it's just an absolutely horrendous thing to do to a bereaved woman, who might not have been distressed with that sonogram, but that's not a great thing to lead on why you think she might have been guilty of this afterwards.
I do believe as well, just looking at how far gone these women are, abortion at that stage is basically illegal everywhere, to be honest. But yeah, it's kind of a grey area, because I guess if you do have good reason to suspect this, and they do have very good reason to suspect this, you would have to move in this eventuality as a law enforcement agent in a place where this is illegal. But I kind of would have wanted to see Scully in particular, having lost a child, to move with more sensitivity.
Again, we keep coming back to that oversight in the script. But also, it's just the level of distress that Laura's going through in this. Someone who only catches the edge of what's going on.
Yeah. And indeed, it's the kind of torture of Laura. It's fair enough, as you previously mentioned, as far as we can tell, Wayne has come to understand how despicably he's been and put in motion ways to kind of make up for this towards the end. Well, not that you can ever make up for it as such, but to kind of put some things right, let's say. At the same time, Laura is so trusting of him that even when he kind of changes his story and says, oh, actually, no, I woke up and you were chanting over a baby in kind of tongues, she initially believes him.
Yes.
And it's just that level of trust and love, which is what really makes Wayne a villainous character, of doing this to this poor, traumatized woman.
Yeah. Yes, and it is one of the factors where you shouldn't be able to forgive him for it.
Yeah, it's an odd thing, and we said the same thing with, as despicable as Bryan Cranston was in his episode, his situation makes you feel oddly sorry for him.
True.
And you've got the same kind of thing here as Wayne's despicable, and yet he's the character you remember and the one you kind of oddly root for in the episode.
Exactly.
It's the right mark of a good villain, I guess, is
Oh,
making a villain that you can also empathise with.
Yes, and also a completely understandable desire, ultimately.
Mm.
Not at all in question or obscure what he wants in the end. And it's hard not to say that, yes, it'd be nice for him to get that. The cost of doing it is absolutely horrendous, however.
Yeah, I'm going to put this down for the mark of a good writer to David Mann for this episode, really, is if you can make a person feel sorry for a villain that you shouldn't be able to feel sorry for, you've done a really good job writing them.
Yes. So, yeah, major kudos for that.
I mean, I'm not going to go to say it's a perfect episode because we've noted with Mulder and Scully's characters, there are still some issues here, but Wayne is a great character. He's a really, really decent villain for the series.
Yeah. And I think it's a tough one because you could say if one of the regular writers had done the same episode, maybe Mulder and Scully would have been stronger. At the same time, you kind of want to point to the last run of episode and say, yeah, but they've been doing this.
Yeah.
Something's been going badly wrong, and this is a course reset.
It's kind of nice to get out the dredge, to be honest.
Yeah. This is a course reset.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's a good place to kind of round off this episode. But it's, as we've been saying for a while, is we kind of need some fresh blood in the writing staff, and it's nice that we've got that, and it's a pretty good episode.
Oh, yeah.
But time's been kind to this episode. A lot of people are more positive about it now. At the time this came out, it was largely hated. It was very mixed to negative reviews for this one.
I remember really liking this one.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed this episode, but then again, I like Bruce Campbell.
I was going to say, that's possibly a factor in this case. It's Ash from Evil Dead. Hooray!
Yeah.
But if we do everything else, I think we need to get some rain.
You're really trying with these segues, I can tell.
I am. Are they working?
I'll let you have it.
Okay. Rain King, directed by Kim Manners, written by Jeffrey Bell, another new writer. First podcast on the 10th of January 1999. Guest stars Clayton Rona as Daryl Moots, who's in The Relic.
Really?
He's one of the police officers.
Oh, okay.
And then it just goes into The Human Centipede 3
Oh, gosh, no.
and Star Trek Next Generation. He's had a varied career. He's loads of
Varied
other
is
things.
polite, yeah.
There's loads of other things, but not things I'm familiar with. Okay, so I need to correct one mistake we have been making for decades.
Really?
Yeah. Victoria Jackson plays Sheila Fontaine.
Okay.
She is not Lucy from Twin Peaks.
You've told me that for years.
I've told you that for years. I've believed it for years. I don't know. I imagine I got this from someone else. I can imagine who it might have been. Never thought to check before. That's not her.
Who is she then?
She is, though, Terry in UHF.
Oh, yes, I can
Yes,
see
she
it.
is.
Yeah.
In really minor roles that came up, though, Dirk Blocker played Mayor Gilmore,
Okay.
who was in MASH,
Yeah.
Poltergeist,
Huh.
Starman, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Huh.
And last, and not listed normally, but I couldn't pass this one up, David Manis as Holman Hart. Was in Frasier, unsurprisingly,
Okay.
Tokyo Godfathers,
Ah.
and, Dub obviously, and Pokemon Kyurem versus the Sword of Justice.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah.
How many X-Files actors have we found who just do dub work? It's really weird.
Oh, but Tokyo Godfathers is high tier.
Yeah. So would you like to give us a rundown of ranking?
Sure. Once again, largely ad-libbed from Wikipedia. Our episode opens in Crona, Kansas on Valentine's Day, where we see Sheila Fontaine and her fiancé Daryl Moots getting into an argument, because Fontaine has announced to the newspapers that they are getting engaged, but Moots wanted to keep this a secret, even though this has apparently been going on for months. After the argument, Moots gets drunk and drives his car away, but crashes into a pole after large, heart-shaped hailstones wreck his car. The episode then cuts to 6 months later, when Mulder and Scully arrive in Crona, apparently having been requested by the mayor. For several months, following Valentine's Day, there has been a terrible drought that has plagued the entire region. Moots has styled himself as the Rain King and genuinely seems to have the power to control the weather, and therefore he is charging people to make it rain, which has led the mayor to believe that somehow he's actually the one causing the drought. Mulder and Scully head to his offices and discover a list of his clients. While there, Mulder sees a weather report on the local television and heads over to the station to speak to the weatherman there, who's called Holman Hart. We also see that Sheila also works for this same TV station. Mulder discusses Moots' talents with Hart, who admits the fact that even though he's sceptical, it does actually look like Moots is controlling the weather. Mulder and Scully then attend one of Moots' weird little rituals, which comes across as being a lot like an evangelical preacher. Despite what they previously believed, both Mulder and Scully witness Moots apparently ordering the rain to fall on the dry farm. Meanwhile, we cut back to the TV station where we see Hart and Sheila talking about what's happening. At this point, Sheila mentions the fact that she is attracted to Agent Mulder. Later that night, Mulder and Scully check into a motel, and as Mulder is looking out the window, he sees a cow get sucked up into a tornado that then crashes through the roof, almost killing him. Immediately after this incident, a tearful Sheila admits to them that she believes that she caused the cow to fall. In her own words, she murdered the cow. Sheila has a strange history when it comes to weather-related phenomena. She has come to believe from this that somehow unconsciously she controls the weather, doing things like causing a hurricane to hit their high school prom and various other serious weather conditions. Mulder assures her that none of this is the case, and while they're having this conversation, Hart also learns that Moot was drunk on the night of his accident and seems relieved. Almost immediately afterwards, we see that Moots can no longer control the rain. Mulder quickly realises that it's neither Moots or Sheila controlling the weather, but it is actually Holman Hart. All of the strange weather that this town has experienced is a side effect of the fact that he loves Sheila but has kept this a secret for years, bottling up his emotions. Because he felt guilty that his weather powers caused Moots to crash and lose his leg in a car accident, he has been subconsciously causing it to rain whenever Moots desires it. Unfortunately, although Mulder tries to give Hart relationship advice, Sheila is incredibly attracted to Mulder and turns him down because she believes she has a chance with him. This results in a massive thunderstorm that materialises out of nowhere and almost floods out the high school reunion that is occurring that night. During this, however, Hart finally manages to admit his love for Sheila, who accepts him and finally rejects Moots once and for all. The storm stops immediately, and we then cut to 1 year later, where we see Hart and Sheila now have a young baby and are living happily ever after.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll start off with that. I actually do like this episode, but...
I love there's always a but.
Well, you know, never, but I just on hearing this episode, I found added a new few other kind of problems with it. Is there some real flaws in this episode, I feel?
I adore this episode. It's so sweet, and I can't hate it. But no, go on, give it your flaws.
I don't hate it at all. I really actually enjoy this episode. The big one, or the one that's always stuck out to me for many years, is we come back to an old favourite of episode placement. This episode makes no sense where it is.
Okay.
So Mulder and Scully, in their job at the FBI, are doing background checks. What are they doing in this town?
They just went there because Mulder heard about it.
Yeah, but they're in their capacity as the FBI. They're not undercover like in Dreamland. They've come here on FBI business.
You mean they need a kind of mundane reason for being there?
Yeah, unless this episode comes when they're reassigned back to the X-Files, which is inevitability, let's not kid ourselves. This episode should come later in the season.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah, I don't get it. It's someone was not paying attention again.
Sadness.
I know. The other kind of structural ones are, and we'll get to all the good stuff in a minute, I've realised that the first one is the sting is a red herring. With the heart-shaped hailstones is a red herring.
Yeah.
Because this is meant to lead us to believe it is Sheila who's doing this.
Yeah.
I understand why it's in there. Never quite understood how it happens, how Holden can possibly know this. Because he has to know that if he's read the engagement in the paper, you think it'd kick off much earlier, or the timing is weird.
I guess it's got to be the engagement in the paper and the heart shape being symbolic because it's Valentine's Day.
Yeah, but the timing is weird.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason why he only found out then. Like you said, if she'd called him up after Daryl left,
Yeah.
that would have smoothed everything over.
Yeah, I guess you needed her to immediately call Holman, because they are childhood best friends. They talk all the time.
Yeah.
Call Holman crying because Darren's walked out on her or something.
Yeah. The third one is possibly the hardest one for them to have fixed. It is not clear whatsoever how Daryl got into his head that he can make the rain fall. Because all he's done is crash during a hailstorm. We kind of need to see him do the same shtick he does with the beer and the pavilion and everything, the gazebo.
Yeah.
Do his terrible dance, and that caused it to start raining. We need that the first time that happened. Because otherwise, I don't see how he's got into this mindset.
Yeah. What the first instant was that made him realise, no, that is a good point on there.
It's implied it's the hailstorm, but that doesn't work.
Yeah, I remember when we started watching this episode, you criticised how Holman knows when Darren's going to do this, but I'm going to go with we don't entirely understand the nature of his power as the argument for that.
Yeah.
That maybe he's kind of created some universal rule that if Darren does X, then Y, the rain will happen. So therefore, his power is just following Darren.
Yeah, but it's how to imbue him with the Rain King status. That doesn't make sense. I get he's feeling guilty, which that comes across fine.
Yeah.
It's how Daryl figured this out.
Yeah.
That's the bit I get stuck on. Moving past that, however, otherwise, it's another... Again, it's not entirely a comedy, but there are actually some outright funny moments in this.
I'd say it's a comedy episode. It's very light-hearted, very sweet.
It's a rom-com. It's actually a rom-com episode rather than a comedy episode. This is definitely a romantic comedy.
Yeah, very much so.
And, I mean, we've got some typical X-Files gross gags like the cow, which just the shot of it being sucked up into the twister is one of those.
Apparently, Kim Manner's greatest regret of the episode was that Mulder did not say "got milk" when the cow crashed through the ceiling. But
I think
I also like the black comedy of you. Right after it, you have the shot with Scully looking up through the ceiling. A guy walks past her with a chainsaw and says something like, "Better get out of here if you don't want to smell of hamburgers."
Yeah.
Oh dear God.
Because I kept missing it whenever I was trying to rewatch the episode. That it's so quick watching this cow get sucked up into the air. Just...
Apparently there are some fun facts. Most of my facts about this episode are about that one scene because it's the one everyone remembers. But first off is they actually filmed it on location in a motel, and they asked for permission to cut a huge hole in the roof on the understanding that they would pay for the entire building to re-roofed for them if they allowed this, which the motel owners did allow.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, really.
The second one is the cow itself, so that's kind of a... obviously it's a digital shot of... they've taken photos of a cow and digitized it so it looks like it's being sucked into a tornado. However, the second half of the shot is a giant cow puppet being dropped through a hole in its roof onto Mulder. And they realised when they were dropping the cow that it was a totally different colour to the one in the digital shots. So therefore, their kind of effects artists had to very quickly rush in there to recolour the cow to make it all match up again.
I do like it as just it's the absurdity of it, and then Mulder saying, "That cow had my name on it."
Yeah.
Yeah, this...
And followed by Sheena running in tears saying, "It's me, I murdered the cow!"
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I do like it, and the other good comedy moments are just... It's the scene when Mulder is going to Holman and convince him he has to confess to Sheila. And he rings up Scully and explains why the fog is still there and why they can't leave. And just says, who's giving date advice? Oh, me. And then Scully just says nothing. Everyone says, "Are you still there?" "I'm here." Like, kind of pot calling kettle black, Scully, because last time Scully went on a date was Never Again, which was one of the worst dates I've ever seen.
Halfway through season 4.
Yeah. And prior to that, it was season 1 in Jersey Devil.
Yeah. That poor guy.
That poor guy. But, yeah, to criticise Mulder for this is very funny, but you can't really talk Scully because you're also one of the most asexual people we've ever seen.
Yeah, true. I do kind of like all the nods because we've seen throughout this season the hints that Mulder and Scully are going to get together eventually. But there's quite a lot in this episode where people in this kind of small Kansas town assume they're a couple.
Yeah, like it's like from the moment they arrive, they assume couple, and then when they turn the TV station, they assume they're a farm couples for some reason.
And you have that lovely looking in the mirror bit where they're mistaken for the farming couple that have won something, and then you see the actual couple, and they look absolutely nothing like Mulder and Scully. And just the comment of, oh, I did think you were a bit too well dressed for a farm couple.
Oh, you think? In Kansas. And I do kind of like, I mean, we are prodding again the whole Mulder and Scully thing, but I think this time it feels a bit, doesn't feel the same because it's at least Holman and Sheila get together. As you pointed out, though, the timeline of the X-Files is we've crossed into the millennium with this episode, and no one has just said a word.
Oh, you've got with your timings, in the early seasons, basically, you could see the seasons changing throughout, like a season ran a year or so. So we had 2 episodes ago was Christmas.
Yep.
We've had Terms of Endearment. We've had the opening of this episode that is Valentine's Day, which could have overlapped with Terms of Endearment, fair enough. But then we skip to July or August or something like that.
Yep.
So what's been going on with Mulder and Scully for the rest of that time?
We're very much old school TV where we're just going to fudge the timing of everything and just try not to pay attention.
And then, of course, at the end, we skip to a year later as well.
Yeah, so we've crossed the millennium, which I'm pretty sure the series Millennium would have a few words to say about.
I'm going to assume that the alien invasion of Earth hasn't happened in this time as well.
Yeah, no, all we know is the date has been set, and we do know it's in terms of decades, so we know we can't have hit it yet. We know it's officially far off, but we don't know quite when that is. But yes, it's a fun episode. I mean, I like just both Mulder and Scully trying to get this couple together and like swaying together at the dance is really sweet.
Yeah. It also has one of my favourite Scully lines in it. I love the pep talk she gives to Sheila in the bathrooms at the high school reunion, where she gives this wonderful little speech about, you being friends with someone for a long time, and then finally just one day it's snapping and you realising that you actually love them.
Yeah.
I think it's sweet, and I think it's something that you can hold a mirror up to the way her and Mulder's relationship's developing too.
Yeah, it is one of those, I mean, it presumably is meant to be ironic, the fact that she's saying this and not twigging that, this might be going on for me.
I think we've seen it for a while, though. A lot of people have cottoned onto the fact that she and Mulder are more than just friends, but they just haven't quite accepted it themselves yet.
Yes, I mean, given the amount of time they spend together, professionally and non-professionally as well.
Yeah.
The amount of times they've gone on the run together, for one thing.
Well, the fact that they will spend Christmas together, even though Scully should be spending it with her family.
Yeah, I'm still weirdly convinced, and the timeline of that is still unclear, because I do think it's actually presumably meant to be the evening of Christmas Day. It still reads to me as like, this is 3 a.m. after they've got back from the ghosts.
Yeah.
I forgot to look in this episode for the house that apparently crops up here again.
Oh, I looked that up, actually. I think I misunderstood or the article I read wasn't entirely right, but that entire town, which we've passed off as Kansas, is called Pica. And the house was Pica Mansion. So I think they filmed both episodes in Pica, but it wasn't necessarily the mansion that was appearing.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. But I felt, well, it's the English perspective of what Kansas looks like, which is basically the Wizard of Oz, but I thought it was convincing enough. Yes,
good. Thank you for mentioning the Wizard of Oz, because you reminded me, we have a whole slew of Wizard of Oz references, which would be fine, given proximity, given the weather thing, given the location and everything else, had Triangle not also been chock full of Wizard of Oz references.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that we had at least 3 or 4 Wizard of Oz references in Triangle, and then we've got the Wizard of Oz themed high school reunion. We've got the whole story about adverse weather conditions, including tornadoes on a Kansas farm. And we've even got Somewhere Over the Rainbow playing over the end.
Yep, and she's even wearing red shoes.
Her red slippers, at the dance. The ruby slippers, isn't it?
The ruby slippers. Yeah, and it feels, in isolation, both of them are fine. In close proximity, it's what's going on? Just move them away from each other.
I'll still take this one over Triangle, to be honest.
Oh no, I'm not saying I want Triangle, and I like this one a whole lot more than Triangle.
In fact, I found a contemporary review of this one, which I think sums up my feelings towards the Rain King really nicely.
Okay.
Again, this was, I think I've referenced him a few episodes back, but Tom Kesnish, who wrote Examination, an unauthorized look at seasons 6 to 9 of The X-Files. He said, "The Rain King was cute, very cute, and yet I never found myself suffering from cuteness overload. In fact, I laughed and smiled the entire way through." Which sums up my feelings. It's just a joyous episode, really.
It is.
And I like the fact that we have a series about the supernatural, but the supernatural always boils down to something that's scary or violent. But this episode is it's still got that paranormal feel to it, but it's so positive.
Yeah, I'll give them that one. And I like, again, that sort of reminded me of another joke, which is, Scully, what do you know about weather radar? Like, well, what's the red thing in this weather radar that's developed after Sheila decided that, yep, she's definitely going to seduce Mulder?
Oh, and you look at it, and it's a huge swirling cloud as well. It's I don't think I need the expert analysis of this one.
And Scully concludes thunderstorm.
Maybe it's a tropical storm. That looks an awful lot like a hurricane to me, but there we go.
I'd give hurricane, yeah. But I like the gags, and it's just the weatherman controls the weather. That's a great idea as well.
Yeah. This episode actually was one that was freelanced. It was written by a kind of long-term fan, and he submitted his script to it. Chris Carter loved it, and they just helped him out to kind of build it and make it a more structured X-Files episode with our dear friends of John Gilnitz kind of helping out. So it was a Spotnitz, Shebang, Gilligan kind of assistance, and you can really feel that it's that writing team that have helped out with it.
Yes. Restrain somewhat from some of their weirder impulses when the three of them get together.
Yeah. It's very much got the Vince Gilligan characterizations in there, though, you can feel in particular.
Oh, yeah. The terrible people who are nonetheless fascinating to watch.
Mm. I guess you're particularly talking about Moots when you say that.
I am talking about Moots.
Moots is a real scene stealer whenever he's there.
Yeah, as you said, it's the Baptist preacher, but the Baptist preacher who, what he does really well is that when his first appearance as the Rain King, it's very clear to you that he doesn't know how this works, but is not about to let a good thing go to waste. So he's going to keep on doing exactly as he has been doing.
I really love his opportunism as well, where he's got the really young girl that is his kind of partner that he's having an affair with. That's why his relationship with Sheila's fallen apart.
Yeah.
But the second he runs out of money, he dumps her in a heartbeat and tries to get Sheila back. And the second that doesn't work, he goes straight back to the young girl. There's no blink, no remorse.
No.
He's possibly one of the most despicable characters we've ever seen on the X-Files, and we've seen Tombs.
Yes. And one thing I think you gloss over because of the happy ending and everything is he's still really stuck as per the end of this episode.
Yeah.
There's not a lot he can, but there's basically nothing he can do now.
His career's dead.
Yeah.
All he's got going for is his younger girlfriend and the fact he's being massively sued by everyone.
Yeah. And imagine if the drought breaks, as long as he's not got money up front, you might be okay, but yeah, it's still dodgy.
Yeah. But he's fun. And
he is fun.
He really does steal the show, I think.
Yeah. But I mean, that comes back to my whole episode positioning, because it's the mayor complaining that he's holding the town hostage. And, Scully was not told what this was coming in. And that's very X-Files, because Mulder's done this to her a load of times.
Yeah.
So that works. It's just that doesn't work under Kirsch.
True.
There's no way Kirsch is sending you to do this.
Yeah.
If you thought Mooch was building a bomb, yeah, I can believe that you're there for that.
Yeah. Or as we've seen happen in the X-Files a few times, like in Drive, is they happen to be in the vicinity doing something else and Mulder just scarpers.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Or even Terms of Endearment, where he explicitly ran off from work to go and do something else.
Mm.
I can imagine was written tail end of season 5 or something, with the assumption it would go into a normal X-Files mix.
Yeah.
Not, we're under Kirsch, we can't do stuff. And I remember Kirsch coming into the series a lot more than he has done.
Yeah, he's really not in the series as much as you'd think.
No.
It's kind of a shame, as I rather like him. I like him as this kind of antagonistic roadblock they've got to get around.
Well, it's the weird thing, because we know he's actually gonna go right the way to the end of the series.
I'm pretty sure he makes it all the way.
Yeah, and it's just odd then that he's been introduced and just largely shoved to the wayside for most of the time. So, do we have anything else for this episode, or...?
I don't think there's actually a lot to talk about in ranking.
No.
It's an incredibly sweet, incredibly enjoyable episode, and I like the tone change.
Yes. Again, these ones, while technically continuing the run we've had in season 6, stand out. In terms of endearment, because that's one of the darkest things I think the X-Files has ever done and ever will do. I don't think we actually get any worse than this.
No, I think that's possibly, depending on, I guess, what really gets under your skin.
Yeah.
It is one of the darkest subjects that the X-Files touches upon.
Yeah. But also does it in this unbelievably sort of deft way that actually makes the episode really watchable.
It's one of those things where if you'd kind of done it wholly dark and serious, it would have been a very difficult episode to watch.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those where I fear that the content warning might put people off, but it's not what you think it is.
Yeah, at the same time, it is exactly what you think it is. It's really hard to get across what the experience is like. It's a very strange episode, ultimately.
The example I always think of is there is an anime series called Paranoia Agent, which contains one episode that got a high certificate because it deals with suicide. And if you kind of describe that episode to people, it puts them off, but the episode itself is actually rather comedic.
Yeah.
And it has it's a dark subject matter, but it's actually a really light episode, and it's hard to get across because people always try and warn you off this episode that it's not the dark, grim, all-encompassing thing you think it's going to be.
No, but at the same time, it absolutely is about that.
Yeah.
Confusingly. So, Terms of Endearment bringing back the darkness is absolutely necessary, and Rain King being a rom-com, which the X-Files hasn't really done before, but it's funny in a different way to how Dreamland tried to be. And whatever the Ghost that Stole Christmas was trying to do.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. We said when we had the person on our Twitter a few weeks back who commented on that there were too many comedy episodes in this series, and I do still think that's a problem.
Yeah, well, I'd say these two are the exceptions so far.
Yeah, it's the whole... I'm getting a bit of comic episode fatigue now, but it's a shame that they didn't come first, to be honest, because they're, I think, a lot higher quality than Dreamland and Triangle and The Ghost Who Stole Christmas before.
Yeah. Although at the same time, Rain King needs to be shoved further back.
You're still determined that Rain King will be after we get reinstated on the X-Files?
I think it has to be. Or you have to invent a different reason why they're there.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But Terms of Endearment works exactly where it is, that's fine. It does just underscore that Spender being on the X-Files and Mulder and Scully being on Kirsch doesn't amount to much.
Yeah.
It just feels a weird missed opportunity. Do we have anything else, though?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, so next week, Skinner takes centre stage in SR819.
I remember that one, yeah.
Hang on to it, because we'll get to that. And it's paired with an episode we've been hanging on to for a while, which is Tithonus.
Oh, we're up to Tithonus!
We're up to Tithonus, and we have... I think everyone, after watching Tithonus, a lot of people, and I remember this conversation, though I remember it wrong somehow, because I remember still being in high school, and that's not possible in 1999. But a lot of people had exactly the same thought when they saw Tithonus. There's one specific element, people said, oh, okay, so that now means right.
I've been looking forward to both of these. Next week's going to be good.
Yeah. So look forward to those. In the meantime, if you want to get hold of us, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also get us on social media, and please do hook me up if you want me to promote anything at the start of this show. You can find us on Twitter and Tumblr at GetStrange42. We're on Mastodon at GetStrange42@universedon.com, and on Facebook at Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast. If you're not sick of my voice by now, I also have a channel on Twitch. I stream live Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT and Saturdays at 5 PM GMT, just playing whatever I'm currently playing on the PlayStation 5. It's currently Yakuza Like a Dragon, although this Saturday gone, I did do a special one-off stream where I played the entirety of the brand new game, Silent Hill: The Short Message. That's available now on the Adverse Camber 42 YouTube channel, and also on my Adverse Camber 42 Twitch stream. You should be able to still see it there for the next couple of days at least, but do be warned, it's a bit darker than my usual stuff, and the game itself contains themes like suicide and self-harm, so do be wary of that if you do watch it.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsgettingstrange, where you can find our first 3 episodes of our Let's Play of the X-Files game. The first one.
Yay!
The FMV one. The Mulder and Scully light game.
You mean the Craig Wilmore simulator?
I do mean the Craig Wilmore simulator. Scully's going to be in episode 4, if that helps.
I'm sure Mulder will appear one day.
Yeah. He's got to be in there. Well, he's in the intro, but then he's kind of... Well, no, he might be in some of those surveillance shots. We don't know. Is that Mulder? I don't know. He's like 3 pixels long.
Ah, the 90s.
All our stuff is available for any tier, so it's as little as $3 a month. You can get access to all our stuff, which is the Let's Play review of Mulder and Scully by Catatonia, and all the future non-visual X-Files ephemera, in terms of not TV shows and not films. So this is like the books, the comics, board games, trading cards, anything else we could possibly do. Possibly the X-Files album. Also, if you'd like to give us a review wherever you found this podcast, that would be great, or a rating. And also let us know if you want us to send it to Blue Sky. Our theme music is Envision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find that on comedic.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
that cow had my name on it.